Hi, welcome to Chad's Silversmithing. If you wouldn't mind, take a moment and hit the like button before you leave today. That really helps out my channel a lot if you wouldn't mind doing that. Today I'm going to do kind of a different video than I usually do on Thursday, but I've been meaning to do one where I show how to cast an ingot, because occasionally there comes a time when you're making jewelry that you want to have a little bit thicker metal than you have available to you. And making your own ingots is one way to do that, especially if you have a rolling mill, and then you can change it into sheet or wire. So today I'm going to show you how to cast an ingot. Before we get started though, I wanted to thank my YouTube subscribers for being such loyal followers. I really appreciate that. We just passed 7,300, which is great. Okay, you should know I'm starting a Black Friday sale about the time this video is released, and it extends through Cyber Monday at midnight, and you'll be able to take 15% off of any jewelry on my website. So I'll put a link right here to my website, and you can check that out and get a little bit better deal than you normally would. So I also wanted to thank my patrons, and they should, by the way, check out their inbox on Patreon, because I'm giving them an additional percentage off as well. But I wanted to welcome a new patron, Dominic E., who is my latest sign up. I hope that he enjoys his stay over there and meets all the nice people, and finds, like I have, that it's a really nice community with lots of cool people. So thanks for signing up, Dominic, and thank you all my other patrons as well for signing up. I appreciate all of the support, both financially and all of the great ideas and knowledge that you have. So thanks for that. All right, let's get started. Okay, periodically when you are making jewelry, you run across a situation where you would like to have some thicker silver to work with, whether it's for sawing stuff out or some other reason. Recently, one of the situations that came up, I wanted to make an inlaid copper ring, and I wanted the top to be relatively thick little billet of metal. And so I never keep any sheet around that's any thicker than 18 gauge. So I had to use an ingot that I cast, and it can be a little challenging to cast ingots. So one of the reasons that is that silver by nature cools off really quick when it comes into contact with something else that's not as hot as it is. And so one of the difficulties when you're casting your own ingots is that you need to get your mold hot enough to where the silver just doesn't immediately turn into a solid as soon as it hits it. You want to be able to pour it into the mold so it fills up the mold and then solidifies. But if you have a cold mold, if you have a cold mold, it really won't work very well. You'll end up having it turn into a solid right at the entrance to the mold usually. So I had lots of fails at this before I figured out the trick to getting the mold really hot. If you have a kiln, that might be an easy way to get it hot in advance. I don't have a kiln yet. I've been meaning to get one for like 25 years, and I just haven't gotten around to it because I never could figure out a way to justify it. This would help though, getting the mold hot in advance. So the other thing you gotta have is you gotta have a crucible of some sort. I have this old beat up crucible I've been using for years. These are not very expensive. I think they're 20 bucks or so, and you can use it to melt metal whenever you need to, so it's handy to have around. You need some sort of mold. I have two different kinds of molds here. This is the first one I bought years ago, and it's to cast like long skinny ingots to make wire out of that you can roll through your rolling mill and then pull through a draw plate into different kinds of wire. It's also got a big thick kind of ingot mold on the back here. There's so much metal here, it's super heavy and hard to get this thing really hot enough for me to cast a really good ingot in it, and so I never really used it very much. Perhaps somebody else has a trick that I don't know of, but as soon as I would pour it into here, it would stop flowing after a quarter of an inch or so, and not create a nice linear ingot. So I didn't have much luck with this one in the past, so I eventually got a different one. This one I've had better luck with. It's not quite as massive as that. This one is also allows you to do nice flat ingots like that are easy to roll out through the rolling mill. And if you want to, this thing that holds it together. The whole thing, you can make narrow ones or long ones based on how you slide this back and forth. But if you flip it around to the other side, line it up, you can cast like cylindrical ingots. So that makes for, you know, nice thick wires after you hammer them and pull them through a draw plate a couple of times. So, or roll them through a rolling mill first, actually, I should say, and then pull them through a draw plate. But it's quite a bit of work making your own wire and sheet, but every once in a while I have a need for thicker stuff, so I do it once in a while. Also, if you run out of materials and you can't afford to get some new materials, this is one method you could do for making your own stuff, especially if you've built a lot of scrap silver. You know. When I'm doing stuff like this, I always try to pick the cleanest stuff that I can out of here that doesn't have a lot of goobers on it, not a lot of excess solder or anything like that. So, but yeah, but you'll fill up your crucible here. I'm going to do about a little more than 3 ounces of silver, and then I'm going to try and cast an ingot out of here. So you don't always get a perfect ingot either. You know, like it may pour in part of the way and start to seize up on you, but you'll probably get at least a part of it that's usable. So if you had a kiln though, I think you get a nice full pour on it, I bet. So let's give that a try and see how it happens. So a couple of other things I would suggest you have around. Have a jar of water in case you start a small fire or something. If you're using really messy scrap, like it's got a lot of flux in it or other junk mixed in with it that you need to scrape out of the silver once it melts, it may smoke a lot, so you might want to do this outside. And let's see, what's the other thing I was going to say? Oh, have a fire extinguisher nearby in case you have a big fire. So just be real safe. All right, let's give this a try and see what happens. So here's how I have things set up. I cleared off some space on my table here. I have my regular Silversmith torch, but instead of the regular #1 tip that I have on there, I've thrown a #3 on there, which is a much bigger tip, and that'll allow more flame to come out of there. I've got a backup torch here, which is my Prestolite, and I'm going to have my wife hold this in order to keep the mold hot, because one of the problems with casting ingots out of silver is that silver, as soon as it hits something cold, will immediately solidify, and so we need that mold to be really hot so it has more time to pour into the mold before it turns into a solid. So I have this crucible that I've loaded up with a bunch of silver scrap. I pre-melted some of it. There's kind of a big button at the bottom there, but I decided to add some more because I'm going to try and do a really big ingot here. We'll see how it goes. I've got fire extinguisher in case of a major fire. Hopefully that's not the case. I've got a jar of water in case there's just something small that catches on fire, but generally we don't have that issue. It's just good to be safe. So I think we're just about ready. As you can see, I put down a bunch of old pads. One other thing I forgot to mention is I usually keep an old pair of tweezers with insulated handles in order to scrape off any kind of scum that's on top of the liquid metal, any kind of flux or whatever other impurities are floating around in there. So we'll use this in order to scrape that off and just put it on the pad here. Alright, so we're about to get started, and I have my lovely assistant, my wife, over on the other side holding an extra torch. Reason being, when you're casting an ingot, you need to get the mold very, very hot. If it's too cold, when the molten metal hits it, it'll immediately turn into a solid and then it won't pour into the mold. So we've got to get this mold really, really hot. So I'm going to have her heating it for a little while before I even pour it. I put, like I said, I put a bigger tip on mine. I'm going to melt this scrap that's in the crucible, and then once it's really a liquid, we're going to pour it in there. It's important though to keep heating it after it's completely liquid so that we can pump some more degrees of temperature into it so that it's less likely to turn into a solid as soon as it hits the mold. Very nice. Well done. Thank you. All right, so I'm going to let that cool off, and then we'll pull that apart, and then we'll see how it came out. All right, it's probably still a little warm, but I'm going to go ahead and open it anyway, because I'm impatient. I think that's actually a pretty usable ingot that we got there. It didn't fill up the mold completely. It kind of stuck to one side that time, but you kind of see it's got some flow marks, but I think we're pretty solid most of the way through. At least this upper part of it here is a usable chunk that I can do. And actually, even this other stuff, if I my rolling mill is not sturdy enough to start rolling this through straight off. So what I would have to do is cut off this top that's a little bit, it's kind of like a sprue, and then this flatter part here I can take out in the garage and use a heavy 3-pound hammer to pound on it for a while. Then I would come in and anneal it, and then pound on it, and then anneal it, and then pretty soon it's thin enough to where my rolling mill can handle it, and then I can start rolling it out into the sheet. So that's for another video maybe, but I just wanted to show you how to cast an ingot today. So one of the things I anticipate people are going to ask me is, can I use my little butane torch to do this? And my guess would be probably not. I don't have one of those currently. I used to have one a long time ago, and the amount of heat that they produce just isn't enough to really melt a lot of silver. Okay, I wanted to talk a little bit about the ingot itself. So I had a partially successful piece, I think, here. And I think when I look at this, it's got kind of a deep cavity right here that I don't think by rolling it out or pounding it out that'll be gone. So probably going to have to cut the ingot off about right here. And I may be able to get some of this part that it's usable for something. And then of course there's kind of like this sprue bump at the top. So we'll just cut that off with the saw. And then the rest of it I could take out and flatten out with the hammer. And a lot of these inconsistencies should flatten out. And then as you roll it through the rolling mill and anneal it and roll it through the rolling mill, it'll get smoother and smoother. So before I do all that, I'll probably pickle it for a while, and it'll look nice. So one thing I forgot to mention earlier in the video is I'm also putting all of the stuff on my merch store on sale for 15% off through the Black Friday time frame. So check that out. You need to get yourself a Pickle Time mug or something. That's what you should do. Well, that was the casting an ingot video. I hope you learned something from it. First and foremost, remember to be safe when you're doing stuff like this. You're heating metal up to pretty high temperatures and burns are possible, so you want to take every precaution you can to keep yourself safe. So make sure you do everything you can to protect yourself. If you enjoyed this content, make sure to hit the like button before you leave, and you should also check out some of my other videos. This is my 251st video, so I have a lot of content here for you to peruse. There's lots of information for beginners, intermediate people, anybody who's advanced can get lots of design ideas, I think, and maybe some different tricks that they've never heard. Either way, check out some videos, subscribe to my channel, check out the video description for other ways to support the channel, and come back and see us again. Take care. Happy silversmithing.